I'm Edgardo Alvarez. I'm the General Secretariat of World Federation and of ALIRE also, the Latin American Association of Financial Institutions, who gathers all the World Federation and other regional associations from Asia, from Africa, from Islamic countries, from Europe with LT. So we cover all over the world. So you are going to see this in the pictures later. So let me introduce our picture today. We are really honored to have this honorable lady. She is Diana Smallridge, CEO of Momentus Global. Diana is a development finance strategist. She's passionate about mobilizing all forms of capital to drive inclusive growth, which is something that everybody's talking about, and she's been working on this for several years, and advises also development finance institutions and multilateral, regional, and national levels, and how to unlock financing, which is a key issue more in these times. She believes, as well as us, that national development banks are the unsung heroes of development finance, essential to achieving the SDGs. The World Federation is partnering with Momentus Global in a strategic initiative to be more dynamic and visible. The white paper she will talk about is the cornerstone of this initiative. And now is your turn, please. You have the floor, my dear Diana.
Thank you very much, Edgardo. Well, good afternoon, or good evening, but I think it's still afternoon, so I'm going to say good afternoon. Pleasure to see you all here. Thank you for coming. So I've been in the development finance space for 30 plus years and working with all manner of DFIs and sources of finance. And I have to say that my passion is really on national development banks, where they sit within a country system and they provide inclusive financing for development within a country. And as Edgardo has explained, under the framework of the World Federation, there are 5 regional associations that come in under the umbrella, and each of them work with their regional member countries to support national development banks and PDBs. And as we heard this morning, of course, this is a conference about public development banks, Finance in Common Summit. But really, as Dr. Amina spoke, the UN Undersecretary General, she spoke about national development banks within their own borders of being critically important. And so we had proposed with World Federation that there needs to be an opportunity to recognize within the PDB landscape the particular role of national development banks as a subcategory. They themselves, as I'll discuss in a moment, have unique features, unique challenges, but importantly, in this world where we are working towards greater country voices, country-led initiatives, country ownership of development plans, the role of a national development bank stands out as particularly important. So we came up with the title, National Development Banks, the Unsung Heroes in the Global Development Finance Architecture. And this is the year 2025 of the global development finance architecture under great discussion because of the many fora that are planned for this year, whether it's FICS, whether it's Seville for the FFD4, whether it's the G20 also happening, and G7. There are a number of areas, and they are becoming, national development banks are now becoming important and recognized at the highest levels. So just a couple words about Momentus Global. We are a Canadian company focusing on all forms of development finance. I see a Canadian colleague about to sit down, an academic expert in development banking. Delighted to see you, Thomas. We have worked in over 80 countries, and I think one of our unique value adds is to really understand what's going on in country X and country Y and country Z, and being able to see some of the similarities and differences across regions. And I often say to the Federation and to the associations, oh, you know, you have a twin in the Caribbean has twins in the Pacific, and it's so important for these institutions to get along, and we do work on a peer-to-peer basis supporting that. So in 80 countries, our focus is really better institutions, better outcomes, and believing in the development outcome potential of a national development bank. As Edgardo has explained, the World Federation is, you can think of it like a federation of stars. They really all are stars. All the secretaries general of the 5 associations come together, and they have done a lot of good work in knowledge sharing and capacity building, but there is a recognition, if I may say, for this outward focus and being the voice of the industry for national development banks. So lots of coordination and great partner to FICS, and so this is a great opportunity for the Federation to have its voice here. So we have co-authored a paper with World Federation on national development banks as the unsung heroes. And in this paper, as I'll take you through some of the key points, really championing the contributions to the financing of SDGs. And I had just mentioned the P2P work we have been doing with individual national development banks across regions and how important it is. National development banks who have a mandate to support development but operate like commercial banks and don't measure their development impact are really not playing the role and the potential role they can play. So what are we saying in the paper? And I will share the paper with you. The QR code is coming. So we know that national development banks can play a critical role in addressing gaps, infrastructure gaps, SME access to finance gaps, trade finance gaps, all manner of financing gaps that exist for reasons related to the economic conditions of the country, the maturity of the financial sector. These gaps exist. And to make the point, national development banks are just not an emerging market concept. You have in Canada the BDC, Business Development Bank of Canada, addressing financing gaps. So it's not only emerging markets. To make it very clear, national development banks across the globe hold $8 trillion of assets. Ponder that size for a moment. That is a huge amount of money. I don't know what it is in terms of world GDP, but it's significant. And there is no single voice for this grouping. Right now, each member of the Federation deals with their own membership, and then the Federation comes together and is the voice of the sector. But this is under-resourced, and Edgardo is both the Secretary General of the World Federation and his day job is the Secretary General of ALIDE. So we talk about the significance of assets under management of national development banks. Globally, it's $8 trillion. But if you take out the Canadas and Germanys and Japans and just look at the global south, the emerging markets and developing economies, it's $2.2 trillion. Measure that as against the 6 biggest MDBs, the World Bank, the IDB, the AFDB, the ADB, the EIB. And we're talking about a significant player in the global development finance architecture. Again, not well recognized by many. However, national development banks haven't been recognized, and let's just say it might be for good reasons, because some have garnered a reputation for being challenged, a perception by certainly some of the banks that are lending directly, as they're called first-tier banks. Oh, I'm a borrower, this is a government loan, I don't have to repay it. So there's been a collections issue. There's been governance issues where ministers of finance or politicians say, here, this is a loan I want you to support. And I've often advised our NDB CEO clients, the answer isn't yes, minister, period. It's yes, minister, comma. We will run it through our normal credit process. And so it's very important to overcome the governance challenges that have existed. And then just poor advocacy, insufficient global voice to get the support. We have clients in different countries who aren't understood by their government the importance that this institution can play in helping be the instrument of the National Development Plan, the financing instrument, sitting at the table with them, be a key player in crafting the nationally determined contributions. It's all very well to say this is how we're going to reduce GHG emissions, but if you don't have a financing plan to support those projects, you're in trouble. So I think this audience is probably quite familiar with the role of national development banks. And really, it's not that distinct from the broader PDBs, whether it's regional development banks or, for that matter, the multilaterals. Supporting economic growth and development, yes. Attracting financing flows, catalyzing private sector, and we hear about that, we've heard about that much today, and we will more in the days to come. Promoting social inclusion, not just doing ESG reviews to tick the boxes, but actually bringing improvements and strengthening the ESG environment. And then strengthening the financial systems as part of a mandate of a national development bank. It's not just filling gaps, but catalyzing the financial sector to be able to do more. So there's more than just, obviously, financial return. So what makes a good functioning national development bank? We start with governance. I explained that. That is so crucial. And if you could spend 80% of your time ensuring decision-making and the delegation of authorities are correct, and the ability to say, yes, minister, comma, as opposed to yes, minister, punto, I think that's, yes, then that's worth it in gold. Alignment with policy goals. Having said that, it is important that this institution is seen as part of the government system and can be the instrument of delivering public policy. And so alignment with policy goals, whether it's SMEs, whether it's infrastructure, that's critical. Thirdly, and of course it's a financing agency, financial sustainability has to be prioritized. It's not enough to just be letting your balance sheet destruct and expecting the government to bail you out. It needs full representation with accountability and good governance. And finally, capacity building. Development banks need TA for themselves internally, and many of them have TA arms that they're providing their clients. And that's not just being nice, that's improving the quality of their portfolios. So I mentioned that this is a year of some very important global events. And I want to bring our attention to the 2025 Financing for Development 4 conference. And many of you are well aware of this. 10 years ago, Financing for Development 3 was the famous Addis Ababa agenda, where the SDGs were birthed. And here we are 10 years later. And I say that only to give a recognition of how critical this discussion is. It is a key opportunity to present the role of national development banks. And as I'll go into a little more detail, to my utter joy, it shows up in the zero draft. National development banks are there, not in a huge way. It's a start. It's a start to their recognition, but there needs to be a voice who can advocate on their behalf. So the WFDFI represents, across all its members, some 270 institutions globally, and is well positioned to play that role, that advocacy role within the global development finance architecture discussions. Success requires a strong advocacy. It has need for resources and understanding that MDBs need to be aligned to sustainable development goals. You'll see in the paper we've showcased one in particular, Uganda Development Bank. I'm particularly proud of that piece of work because we supported them 8 years ago to get where they are, and they are now measuring impressive impact numbers. But there are other examples from Latin America as well, where you see great progress and a role in developing the economy. So the zero draft of the FFD4 document speaks to a number of aspects about the global financing architecture to meet the SDGs. The pressure's on, 5 years left, you know the story. So it's a more comprehensive framework for SDG financing and talks about policy and regulatory coherence and accountability mechanisms. And I think Dr. Mohammed went through a lot of the important points. And it's meant to be an action agenda where real implementation of good policy ideas can then take over. So our white paper speaks to amplifying the voices of the national development banks, strengthening their governance arrangements, as I've described, and really ensuring accountability, not just to a board of directors, not just to government, to taxpayers, and to one another, really. The white paper speaks to aligning NDB mandates with the SDGs and being very specific in the vision and mission of an NDB, that it is focused on meeting the SDGs, tracking the progress against the SDGs, but also in Africa, the Africa 2063 agenda, the Paris commitments, and nationally determined contributions, national development plans, the importance of that. Enhanced knowledge sharing through the very well-established World Federation Knowledge Sharing Hub. Increasing direct access to the climate funds. Now, you'll be aware that it was only a few years ago the GCF, the Green Climate Fund, decided to move to direct access entities. And if I may speak as a private citizen, it took a long time for the climate funds to recognize that you needed a financing entity. It's all very well to accredit a Ministry of Environment, but they don't know financing. And so to bring these climate experts into the world of financing has been a challenge. And so now there is more and more opportunity for accreditation. But for a national development bank to run through the accreditation process of a GCF is huge. It is an onerous process. Then if it wants to be the Global Environment Fund certified, it's yet another process. And so some possibility of World Federation advocating on behalf of national development banks, can we not have an international driver's license? This was a great idea that was put to us, that there should be one simplified process and to rethink the whole model of that. But the thing is, the World Federation needs to be resourced to be able to do this. It's an important role. There needs to be a voice. FICS has been an incredible support, but it needs to come from the actual, if I may say, bottom-up voices of what's needed to make it work for them. So, unlocking the potential of national development banks to shape a sustainable future where they can be the financing arm for government, but also the ones who participate in financing any in-country opportunity. They need to be partners. Some of them haven't got the sophistication or been developed enough to be partners with the World Bank, African Development Bank, etc. But it shouldn't be the case that they're just being used to develop project pipeline, to do feasibility studies possibly, and then be left in the cold when the actual financing happens. So there's much more attention that needs to be made. I'd like to see it in the mandates of the MDBs that they work via the national development banks. So with proper support, and particularly when we speak about local capital mobilization, national development banks can be the instrument to unlock local pension funds, institutional investors. They can be incredible intermediaries for local finance. And it's worth the effort to be focusing on that when there are pools of capital in these local markets that just invest in government T-bills. We can do better. So we're advocating a collective voice that's amplified through the World Federation that can speak to the global powers that be, if I can call it that, those who are making decisions about the global financial architecture. So this is an invitation to join the Federation and ourselves to really amplify the voice. What we've seen is national development banks, as better institutions, derive better outcomes, better development outcomes. They have the ability, they're in the market, they know the ecosystem, they know the players, they know the projects, they know the opportunities. They may need capacity to grow, they may need to be supported in how to do project finance, how to do collections, how to do risk management, of course. But understanding their role and supporting their role is so important. And there have been many TA, technical assistant providers, who have got this, who fully understand that national development banks are worth investing in, supporting. But there is no single window, there's no unified arrangement for funders. And we've seen often the same type of technical assistance support being funded by different agencies. That's not an efficient use of funds. And with nowadays, with ODA being so scarce, and it seems to be scarcer by the day, it's really important that we find mechanisms to make it more efficient. So the request is to help shape the world of national development banks, the support that they need. So this is the report that's been issued. It's today going public. It's available on our websites, the World Federation and our own. And we would invite you to begin the conversation along with us to see how we can move forward in this. Happy to engage in further conversations, but thank you very much for your attention.